Well, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the first video. Today in our game that we're working on, we're going to start by fixing up the switch mode for the perspective, the camera perspective between first person and third person mode. We have this blueprint that we created yesterday or in the previous video. It was yesterday for me, might not be yesterday for you. This blueprint just adjusts the camera position when in third person mode. What we want to be able to do is switch into first person mode when we mouse wheel in close enough to the character, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So we're out here, we're in third person, we can move around, we can run, and we can jump, and so forth. And I'm still jumping over that box. I can't seem to. I'm gonna do it. There we go. Finally. Just a matter of getting used to the controls. Anyway, yeah, we can mouse in and mouse out. And when we get close enough, we want to switch into first person mode. And when we come out of that, when we mouse wheel back, we want to turn into third person mode. And I've decided exactly how I'm going to do that. The first thing we want to do is right here inside of our third person blueprint, we're going to go in here and create an enumeration right here. So an enumeration is just a list of values, just like in programming in C# or something. It's just a list of named values, and we're going to call this perspective mode. And we'll open that up. And now we can create a new entry for this. And this first one is going to be called third person. We'll add a new one. And we'll name it first person. And we could have, I called it perspective mode rather than relating directly to first and third person, because we could have other modes where maybe mouse wheeling doesn't do anything at all, or it has different properties to it, where perhaps they're in a vehicle or they're riding on some animal, might be a different perspective mode. And we can add those onto here as we come to those issues without breaking anything. So we'll just close this now, and we will do a save all. And so now we have our perspective mode enumeration. So to handle that, the first thing I want to do, come over here and create a variable by clicking on the new variable here, and we're going to call this we're going to call it character perspective. And the type we're going to make it is going to be an perspective mode. Now it's a perspective mode type, and it can only take on those two values, first person or third person. So the game is probably going to start out in third person, so we'll just leave it defaulted to third person. Now what we want is we need to pick up this. In fact, I'm going to remove this. We don't need it. We want to pick up this same event, but we can't take it to two different places. So we can do this in a number of ways. We could pick it up off of this, or we can do this. We can move this out of this box here, and we're going to start by initially breaking this link. We're going to come out here and we're going to put in a sequence. Now what a sequence is, it says whenever I get this, I'm going to call this one, then I'm going to call this one. Okay, so by pulling this event and its sequence out of this box, we're going to be able to use it on multiple pieces that perform this operation. So I'm just going to move this one up because we're going to have that go there first. And so the first event operation is going to be to perform this set. And there's other ways this can be done. I'm going to just put a little gizmo on there, a little connector on there so that that goes on. And this access value here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to promote this. I'm going to I'm going to take this and I'm going to promote it to a variable. And whenever this happens for the oh, that's right. I'm going to promote this to a variable. Okay. I'm getting it squared away here. I'm going to plug this into here and this into here. And so this will now always, we can break this link. Break link. So we don't need all that junk going up there. So we've got this. Now what is happening here? Let me zoom in a little bit. Whenever we get a mouse wheel event, it's going to fire this. It's going to set this. It's called new variable at the moment. We're going to call this mouse wheel value. It's going to set that mouse wheel value to whatever that was and then call this sequence of events. So what do we need? Well, we need this mouse wheel value right here. So if we do a get, and we can just plug it right into here, and now it will get, so it's setting it over here to this variable, and it's getting it here when this is called. When it calls this here, it goes back and it pulls all this information from these lines and it gets it right here. So this is sort of like variables that are being passed into a function, though this isn't really a function. Functions are a separate thing in here, and we're going to eventually use functions, excuse me, but we're not going to use them right at the moment. It's just a little easier to visualize this stuff here. And in fact, what I like to do is once I develop something like this, if I can move it into some kind of a function or other module in a clean way, I'll do that and refactor the system. So now we've got a mouse wheel event and we've adjusted the length of this arm. We want to fire that same mouse wheel event down here, and we want to make some decisions about it. And what we're going to want to look at is the actual length of this follow camera, or excuse me, camera boom arm. So let's get that, and let's get the length. So we just type in length, get arm length. So there's our arm length that we're going to be working with. And the reason for that is we're going to make a decision based on this this arm length, and this is where our connection is going to come in. So we're going to create a branch. Now we're going to make a decision also on the character perspective. So we're going to do a get on that, and that's going to tell us what our current character perspective is. And let's go ahead and hook this line up. I'll back out a little bit. Take this second function here, drop it into there. Now, what do we want to do here from a logic point of view? First of all, we're going to do a select, and the type is going to be an enum, and the type of that enum is going to be this perspective mode. We'll just type it in. Yes. There it is, perspective mode. So we're going to plug this in. Now we can create a return value. Wait a minute now, did I want to do a select on this? Let me think about that for a moment. Okay, we don't want to use a select. Sorry, my mistake. We want to use a switch on perspective mode. And we're going to put this into this selector. And what that's going to do is, I'm going to break this because this is what we want to do first. It's going to decide whether we're currently in third person or first person, which is going to drive our decision. And this can probably move over here somewhere where we're going to use it. Now, the question is, if we're in third person mode and the mouse wheel has moved, what we want to do is a branch. And the condition is going to be arm length less than, and I'm thinking we're going to use this min camera distance but plus some value. So we're going to do a get min camera distance, and we're going to add an offset to it. So we're going to add a float, and we'll make that about 10. And we're going to plug this into the condition. Now, what this says is, if we're in third person mode, get the camera arm boom position, get the minimum camera distance and add 10 to it. And if we're less than 10 away from that minimum position, this will be true. And if this is true, we want to call something. In this case, it's going to be some kind of an event to change mode. We'll get to that in a second here. We want to work out the rest of the logic in the other condition. So that's for that one. And I'm going to pull this up a little bit. I'm going to compact this stuff just a little, make it look a little neater. Pull this down here. Grab all this, pull it up here out of the way. Now for the next one, we're going to do another branch. And it's going to come off of first person. So what this is going to say is, if we're already in first person mode, and we've got this mouse wheel event, we're going to again look at the min camera distance. So I'm just going to copy this and paste it. We're going to look at this stuff as well, this arm length here. But we're gonna take this min camera distance, and we're going to add a little bit more of an offset to it. And the reason for that and having a gap is to prevent chattering. Like if we set them to the same exact value for these two modes, if you hit right on that spot, little variations in it could cause you to toggle very quickly back and forth between the two. So we're going to leave a gap, and that gap, the technical term for that gap is a hysteresis gap or a hysteresis curve. It's not going to be a true hysteresis curve in the technical sense, but it is a form of hysteresis that there is this gap between the two. And that gap amount that we're going to create is about 10. So we're going to paste this down here, excuse me, and we're going to set this to 20. We'll plug this into here, and in this case we want to do greater than, so it's going to be float greater than float. So if this arm length now, after receiving some input, is greater than this min distance plus 20, meaning we've moved further away, then this is going to be true. And those are our two signals, the two trues coming off of here. We don't want to just do a false off of here, because that would then eliminate that gap it would say, well, if we're right there on the edge, this could rapidly switch back and forth between true and false and switch our modes. So that's the reason I've split these in two branches, or two if statements, one here and one here. We don't really need the false condition in either case. That's going to switch us. So the first thing we want to do is take this character perspective mode thing here, and we're going to set it. And we're going to set it, if we're in third person, we're going to set it to first person. And we're going to come down here, and if we're in first person, we're going to set it to third person. And now what we can do is watch this value here, and we can compile and save and play the game, and we can see the value down there. So I'm moving around, we'll watch, I'm going to move in, and it did not change. Interesting. Why didn't it change? Did I not hook something up? We've got our mouse wheel coming in. Access value. I'm going to move this window out of the way so I can see this firing. So it's character's perspective is always going to go up there, and it's not firing. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to, I made a mistake. That's how I get out of it. Okay, I'm going to start moving in, and it fired. And it's setting them. Oh, well, it's calling it anyway. So so I'm not moving the mouse wheel right now while I'm moving it in and out, and nothing's happening. I'm going to move in closer and closer and closer. Here, it fires across. And as I back out a little bit more, it fires across the other one. So that circuit, or that blueprint, is working as expected. So I'm going to get out of that. I'm not sure why oh, that's the default value. We can't see the change there. Sorry, I was not thinking. We would need to look at it in a different window, but this is good enough. So we've got this, and I'm going to comment this stuff now. So this is the switcher that actually switches the perspective mode, and I'm going to call this perspective switch. And I'm just going to move it down here. I'll move this one up a little bit, get it out of the way there. Get this one moved up a little bit. Now the question is, what do we do when one of these things changes here? And we probably want to call an event in this case to tell something that we want to change some things. Okay, and some of the things we want to change is the camera, and we want to change how some of this behavior works, and we'll walk through that a little bit at a time. So what I'm going to do is go over here to my viewport, and now we're going to need a first person camera. Now there's a couple ways we can do it. We could take this camera, disconnect it from the follow camera, reconnect it to the head so that it moves with the body motion a little bit. or we can just put another camera on his head and switch which one is active. I think that's the way I'm going to do it. I think it's just easier that way. So what we're going to do here is we're going to add a camera. So we'll just add component. We'll type in camera. And there's another camera. We're going to call this first person camera. And this one will not be on a camera boom. And there's our first person camera right here. And we can move it around. However, we want to attach it to something. So the way we're going to attach it is by going into this guy, and we need to go into his skeletal mesh. And so we're going to browse to it here. And that's not what I wanted to do. That was browsing to him. I want to open the skeletal mesh. There it is. And we want to go over to skeleton. And this is the entire structure of the skeleton that controls all the animations. And what I am interested in here is hand, middle, pinky, thumb. That's all the hand stuff. That's the root, pelvis, spine, 1, 2, 3, clavicle, thigh. This is the IK stuff. Somewhere around here there should be a neck and a head. And I'm going to add what's called a socket to the head. And I'm going to give this socket a name. I'm going to call it first person camera socket. Now what this socket is a place on that head for me to mount that camera to. So we'll save this, and we will go back to our blueprint. Oh, no, this is the animation stuff, sorry. I'm going to go out of that. We don't need that for now. We want to go back to our, oh yes, we've saved this. Sorry, I'm getting confused on the windows here. I didn't attach them to my main window. So we have now a camera, and we're going to take this camera Okay, we have a couple more things we need to do here. We do need to go to back to the skeleton. Nope. Okay. So we have our first-person camera, and we have created a socket. So once we have the socket created, what we need to do is put a preview on it. What we're going to put on it here is a preview camera. Now I have turned on in the view options here, show engine content. That's important because otherwise the camera won't show up in this list. And we're just going to use this right here, this camera. Now, first thing we can see is, let me move up here a little bit. It's pointing backwards and it's off to the side. So with the socket selected, we're going to go first into rotate mode here. And we're going to rotate it around 180 degrees. And we can see this little indicator on the screen here. 170, 180. So now it's exactly 180 degrees turned around. All that means is the socket was pointing backwards, so when this mounts to it, it's pointing in the direction the socket was pointing into. Now we're going to go into move mode here. Now we're going to slide it over a little bit so that it's more or less in front of his face. And I'm going to turn snapping off so that I can have a little finer control here and position it right in front of his face. Now we'll swing around here to the side. And we'll move it back a little bit so that the front of the camera is a little closer to where his eyes would be. And we'll probably have to adjust this once we see in game exactly how it's going to work and how the view is. So having done that, we'll save it. And it doesn't make any difference if the preview is left on there or not. It's just for that particular scene. And why do we have those guys? Oh, that was an earlier messing around that I did. Oh. Now it's back to being a camera. Okay. So now this is our actual camera. So what we're going to do is we're going to go here to what's called the construction script. The construction script is a blueprint that is run when our character is first constructed, and it's only run once. And we're going to use this to mount the camera onto that socket. And there's an event that we want. And it's not that. Okay, it's already on here. It's it was scrolled off the screen. We want the construction script event. That's what I was looking for. Now, what we want to do is get our first person camera. And if I am not mistaken, it is attached to socket name that we want. Get attached socket name. That isn't the one we want. Attach. Is it attached to component? Socket name. Okay. And I already forgot what the socket name is. You probably remember it, and you're probably yelling at the screen right now. Come on, open up. Go over to here, and the socket name is first person camera socket. I'm going to copy that, and we'll close this. Go back to our construction script and type in here that first person camera socket. Now what we could do is we could be clever, and maybe we really should do this. We'll create a variable and we'll make it of type string. Create a variable name called of type string, and we'll call it camera socket. And is it supposed to be of type string or of type it's of type name? So we want name, and we'll compile that our camera socket name here, and we'll plug that into there instead. Instead of writing it in, we'll have it in a variable. That way we can pick it up for other things if we need to use it. Now all we have to do is hook this up to here, and as soon as this character is constructed, that camera right there, the first person camera, will get attached to that socket of this name right here. And hopefully it'll be close to aligned. We may, like I said, we may have to fiddle with it a little bit. So what we want to do next is switch to that camera. And like I said, this camera perspective is going to be used to control how these functions work, but we're not going to set that up just yet. We're going to first see if we can get it to switch to the camera. So what we want to do is get our first person camera and our follow camera down here. And we can go toggle active. Is it toggle active? So if we're setting first person mode, we certainly want to toggle this. Actually, what we want to do is set active. So we want to set this one to active. When we go to this is our first person camera mode. I want to get rid of this. When we switch to first person, we want to set this to active. Set active. And again, we can't we can chain them together though. We can't hook two things to one operation, but we can chain them together. So that will set our first person camera to active and our regular follow camera to inactive. And down here, we want to do just the opposite. Can we fire two? We can. So because of that, new active, nope, we don't want to do that. Sorry. We're going to have to duplicate these. It's okay. We can just pull these down, plug them into the target. And all we're going to do is reverse these two and plug this into here. Now we should switch between cameras, and let's find out if that works. Oops, we got a compiler error. Why? Oh, this doesn't have a target. This needs to go down here. I thought I hooked that up. Compile. So there you see what happens when you this is really nice. I like this functionality because if you get a compiler error, you can almost immediately see what the error is. They highlight it in red very nicely, and it takes very short length of time usually to debug these, especially if you keep your scripts, you keep your blueprints relatively simple. You're working on one little module to do one little operation. If you can keep it relatively simple, break it down into parts, spread it out into functions, whatever you have to do, it makes debugging and fixing little problems very simple. So let's play it. Why didn't it play? Come on, there we go. Okay, we're playing. So we can scroll out, we can scroll in, and we get down here close, and now we're in first person mode. And I'm no longer controlling the camera, so my mouse is not working, but yeah. And now I'm rotating. And obviously I've got some camera position problems there, so we have to work that out. So it looks like we got to push the camera forward a little bit more so that it's out of his head. His head doesn't fall in front of it. And also we got to set it up so the mouse can move that camera and simultaneously move the character. Or actually, we want the mouse to rotate the character and the camera will rotate with the character is how it's going to operate. So let's see about doing that now. Well, first of all, let's go ahead and go back to our viewport here, select our character, and go back into our skeleton mesh and find our guy here. Let's get up to the top. Now we wanted to move this forward a little bit. So we'll go into move mode here, and we want to pull it forward a little bit, probably about that much. Save it, and actually I'm going to close this one because we don't need it, and I'm going to pull this one down and stick it up here in case we have to come back rather than having to open that multiple times. Let's play it now. Scroll in, we switch, scroll out, we switch back, scroll in, and see there's a little dead spot there, so I can't hit, and that's on purpose. I can't hit exactly at that spot where it's going to flip back and forth. That's important. So we're in this mode. Let's run forward. The head's still going. So, yep, let's move him forward a little bit more. Let's try about there and see what happens. Play it. First person mode. Wow. His head's still coming in front of it. Let's move forward a lot. May very well be that the actual camera is back here. Okay. Something very weird is going on. I'm going to pull it way out in front. Save that. I do have that socket position selected, so it's the socket that I'm moving, not just the camera. See if this had an effect. If this didn't have effect, we've got some other problem going on, and I think we do. Yeah, we have something not right, because I've done this before, and I think the camera should be positioned actually right about here. Save. Let's go back and look at our scripting on our construction script. Snap to target. That's what the problem is. Location rule, rotation rule, scale rule. Scale rule doesn't really matter for this. I think that's what the problem was there. We're going to that socket, but we weren't snapping to the target. We were staying in the position we located it here in game. So let's see how this does. Let's move it way forward now. See what happens. Nope, that did not do it. Well, let's take a look at our viewport guy here. So actually, I know what I want to look at. I'm going to go back to here. Camera's positioned here, which is where I have it here. Why? It should be snapping it according to how I set this up. That's odd. So we'll go into here, select this, let's pull him forward, and let's see what happens. Roll in. Okay, now at least I don't have that's weird. Oh, he's turning around, so the camera's turning around. That's what's going on. Yeah, we want different behavior for this mouse and keyboard than for the third person. So, because now we've got a camera mounted to him. Now, I don't understand. Always before that snapped it to the that's very strange. Okay, enough. This should be snapping, excuse me, this construction script here, taking this first person camera, attaching it to this socket name. We did get the socket name correctly. It is attached. Should be snapped to target. The target being the, oh, snap to target. The target is that. We're snapping to that socket. Keeps current relative transform as the relative transform to the new parent. Snap to target. Snaps transform to the attach point. That's what it should do. That's what it should do. Okay. Okay. Anyway. Okay, so I was able to figure out what the problem is here. And so I'll show you a quick test play here. We can zoom out and zoom in, and we can drop into third person mode. And now we can walk around and even, well, jump up on things. And I got a little tweaking to do of the positioning of things. I think I'll move that camera a little bit, but we can move this way, and we can move in third person mode as well. Switch back and forth as we wish. And I will show you how that works. So over here in our blueprint, this is set back to the way it originally was. This is the controller inputs, the input, yaw, and pitch. We don't need to worry about that. This is all pretty much the way it was. We get our signal and it switches between the two cameras, turns one active and the other one inactive. I think I went over that. If I didn't, yes, we built this all. We built this all together with this set active for each of the cameras: the follow camera, first person, and follow camera. Now, originally, I had gone over here to this construction script and was attaching the camera here. That's not necessary. Oops. Back to the event graph. If we go to our first person camera, there is a setting, two settings. First of all, here the parent socket. We can set the parent socket right here simply by searching and finding our socket first. There's the first person camera socket, and that's what it's set to. Also, I parented it to the mesh and not to the main character. That just seemed easier organizationally. But most importantly, this one setting here, and I will show you. And this is type in pawn, and on the camera we have a use pawn control rotation is what that says, and we need to turn that on. That's a key one that I missed there. That will cause the controller to allow the camera to rotate around and so forth, and look up and down and everything that we just saw without having to do anything fancy. And finally, we needed to make it by default auto activate. We needed to turn this off. And having done all that, our character is now working. We can do a little tweaking on it. Let's compile and save that. Yeah, we can go over here to our actually we want to go here. So this is where I'm gonna adjust the camera position. So we'll just go in here and hit play. And as we come in, it looks like we're a little bit low perhaps, and a little far back. I think we need to be forward a little bit and maybe just a touch higher. So we go over here to this, and we can grab the camera, pull it up a little bit, and pull it forward a little bit. Hit the save button, go back here, play. And this is just going to take a little trial and error and see where we are now. Okay, now we can see ourselves without breaking any of the mesh. That looks pretty nice. And it looks like we're in a pretty good position to see what we're doing. See our hands pop up once in a while while we're running and jumping, mainly while we're jumping. So maybe we need to be just forward a little bit so we don't actually see our hands, but we'll worry about that when the time comes. What we're probably going to do is incorporate a set of arms into this guy. Well, no, I think because you can look down and see your character, we'll need to use his existing arms at some point to, of course there'll be another character at that point too, but yeah. So anyway, that's third person, first person switching, and we will pick this up on another video. That's all I have time for right now, and we will start looking at maybe building some game assets that do some things like doors that open automatically when you approach, or perhaps doors where you need a key, and pickups and things like that. There's ways that we can do that stuff kind of generically, so that we can have like a thing that activates when the character approaches it, and something that activates when the character approaches it and is in possession of an item. And then we can use that same exact thing to activate many other things. So I'll think through that a little bit and think about how we're going to do it, and I will see you in the next video. If you liked the video, hit that like button. If you really like the video, subscribe to my channel, and be sure to check out my website and other things. Links are in the description below, and also I do Minecraft videos, so if you're interested in those, check out my Minecraft playlist. I'll be putting up probably one video a week, perhaps two of those, and one or two of these videos. So yeah, I will catch you in the next episode. Thanks for watching.